Welcome to the Water Cooler Hangout Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Poole. For over 45 years, I've been helping sales and marketing leaders and entrepreneurs grow and prosper by creating extraordinary experiences for their customers. Here at the Water Cooler Hangout, we chat with influential and successful guests who share their real-life stories about their careers and companies. Their successes, failures, and stories will resonate with you and leave you wanting to hear more. We'll learn how all of us are connected and how we share the same kind of challenges, fears, wants, needs, and dreams. My sincerest desire is that you hear something today that helps you create the job, the business, and the life you want and deserve. Loren Weisman is a brand messaging strategist with a focus on the authenticity, authority, optics, psychology, and perceptions of a brand, persona, or product for FSG Messaging and Optics. He's also the host of a brand messaging podcast called Wait, What? Really? Okay. Starting his career in music and behind the scenes as a drummer and then music producer, Loren got to see the ins, outs, ups, and downs of music. He wrote both The Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business and Music Business for Dummies. Shifting to TV production as well as authoring a few books on the music business, Loren gravitated toward the strategic production elements as much as he did the psychological ones as he continued a path leading him in the direction of becoming a brand messaging strategist. From speaking and counseling on brand messaging to brand discovery, analyzing the two sides of artistic vision while igniting the investor confidence, as well as brand protection and amplifications approaches for marketing, sales, and retention, Loren helps across the array of the story and the messaging experience. Loren's speaking and talks focus on the brand messaging strategies, marketing perceptions, audience optics, and authentic engagement methods. Welcome to the Water Cooler Hangout, Loren Weisman. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Water Cooler Hangout. I'm here today with Loren Weisman. How you doing today, Loren?
I'm doing well, Bob. I'm drinking coffee for the two of us.
Yeah, well, yeah. I just shared with Loren that I can't drink caffeine anymore. Even tea, I'm reduced to drinking Red Bush tea, which is good, but it doesn't have any caffeine in. But supports some indigenous people, I think, in Africa or something. So that's a good thing, I think, when I drink it. So you have quite the background that we just talked about. So let's start with, what is a brand messaging strategist anyways?
To me, and I think different people assign different definitions to what a brand messaging strategist. To me, it's looking at the messaging and the root of what you're putting out, and it's strategizing it for where it's going to be in the foundation of your organization, what you're going to bring to marketing, what you're going to bring to your developers, your investors, media, and especially crisis management and competition. So it's, in summary, it's not just authoring something and popping it out there to the world. It's taking those extra points of strategy to consider competition, comparison, contrasting, connotations, and probably a couple other C's.
Okay, so I was wondering, I was talking to someone who actually works on branding for my company. She's over in London, and I was actually talking to her early this morning, and I mentioned you, and I told her what you do. And she was like, okay, so does that have anything to do with what I do? Because she talks in terms of brands and branding and colors and fonts and graphic design. Does your messaging have to do with any of that too?
Well, I have a 5.5-year-old daughter that does better drawings than I do. So not really. We do talk about aspects of with the graphic designers and the people designing brands, some ideas to consider inside of that strategy and parts of the message to put into the image. But we work very well and play well along those that are focused mainly in brand strategy without the messaging of the look, the feel, the touch, the color, the continuity, and all of that. But that is not me. And I'm partially colorblind, so I would not be a good brand strategist.
Yeah, no, that might be a problem. So how does a former drummer and music producer, a guy who wrote Music Business for Dummies, how did you get into this line of business?
It was purely by accident. I was touring the Artist's Guide to Success in the Music Business. I'd just been signed by Wiley to write Music Business for Dummies. And I noticed halfway through the 2014 tour, more people were coming out that were C-suite level business people, marketing people, and they bought the book for their kid or their significant other, and they had some questions regarding what I had done in music and television. I didn't really think I had any place outside of music and TV, but I started sitting down with some of these people, and they started flying me to places. It was very organic, and it started very humble of like, I'm not your guy, but it opened up a door that I never thought I'd go to. I never thought I'd leave LA. I never thought I'd go a different direction in music, but it was a great exit and a transition.
I saw in your first book, a quote that I really liked. You said that the most devastating thing an artist can do to their career is get in their own way. So now that you were talking about the music business then when you wrote that, do you think that applies to all artists, to all creatives?
I think it applies to business people as well.
Yeah.
I believe that oftentimes we get in our own way with what we hope should be, what we believe, or some of the half-truths that we've heard that now we view as objective truths, or expired truths, or hype truths. When we step back and go to that humble place to realize every path, every journey to success is a different story with a different set of parameters, we have a better chance to open up and set a better navigation, in my opinion, as opposed to many people that say, well, I'm going to copy this guy. I'm like, okay, you have $400 in the bank and you're copying the model of somebody that injected 4 million. I wish you the best, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I do see a lot of people mainly inside of ego, arrogance, and just assumption are many of the things to me that I see artists, business people, and many others getting in their own way with.
You talk a lot about on your website and information I've read about authenticity and humility and transparency. Those seem to be key principles in your world. What do they mean to you when it comes to brand messaging?
I believe they mean more than the words that they are. Authenticity began to become this buzzword. And it amazes me that someone will say, well, I'm authentic, but I'm using an AI system to contact you, or I'm using a Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone or John Maxwell system that has nothing to do with you, but you've fallen into a script. I think inside of authenticity and transparency, we can engage in a way that people aren't always expecting. When you look at it also from that standpoint, I can go to my 5.5-year-old daughter when I put her to bed and tell her what I do. We have many people out there that they'll practice something that they wouldn't preach to others, or they wouldn't share necessarily with their clients how they messaged or how they marketed or how they advertised to them. They're embarrassed by it, but they'll still use those tactics. It's that individual that goes and feels cup runneth over faith on a Sunday, but doesn't practice it for themselves on Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. So you use the word stories. Well, I'm all about stories when it comes to marketing, and I'm all about integrity and authenticity. I guess I'll use that word because I've been using it for years. I'll claim it. So stories are what marketing's all about to me, but marketers today, they seem to tell stories that aren't necessarily the truth in many ways.
I think the story can be authentic. And I think like what you've shared and some of the stuff that you have out there, it showcases authentic, down-to-earth stories, the conversations that you and I have had about your past. Mm-hmm. Those are real stories that resonate and amplify because they are you. And many people feel like they have to have that. I have to dance like this person on TikTok. Well, if you can't dance, don't, unless you want to and learn. Oh, I have to write a book. Writing a book gives me authority. Not if you don't know what you're writing about, or not that you don't know how to write. We have many people forcing what they feel our stories should look like, as opposed to taking the time to say, what is the story that resonates most with us, our authenticity, our authority? Then before putting that out, who else is sharing a story similar? How do we craft, not change, but how do we craft that message so that it stays ours, but has a humble awareness for the competitive, the connotative, and even the crisis of somebody else?
Yeah, I was talking yesterday to some people, and we had a conversation a couple of days ago about marketing and sales and what you provide for your clients, and they wanted to split themselves into two groups. I sat back and just listened for a while. Some of them wanted to, they said that they solved client problems. That's what they did. And the other said, well, we solve their needs and wants. One is a solution provider, they say, and the other provides needs and wants. And I keep listening to them and I'm like, why does this have to be either or? I mean, I don't understand why you guys are stuck on, you have to do one or the other here. Why can't your story be about all those things? Because at one point in time, and the other thing we got into was, okay, so tell us a story then. Tell us one of your stories, Bob, they asked me. And I'm like, on demand? it's like, that doesn't quite work that way. What you just said, you need to tell stories that the prospect can identify with. The prospect says, I believe you, I trust you. And it isn't something that you just kind of make up and throw out there. It's actually what I've lived and what people have lived, or what other people have lived. I'm rambling a little bit about stories here because I'm stuck with wondering why people feel that you just can't be authentic. And when you have conversations with people, you can just say, listen, I understand what you're saying. Maybe you say to me, well, I don't like sales. I hate selling. I could say to you, well, I've known a lot of people that hate selling, and here's what I found. Let me tell you a story about, and I can tell you a story about someone I know that hated selling, and what they found that changed their lives, and it's a true story. And yet, people for some reason seem to think that you need to have something you make up that you put out there in social media ahead of time, and instead of just being realistic and authentic. And
I absolutely agree. I don't think that's rambling at all. Those are all absolute and excellent points. We are in a time, as you mentioned, that people feel like, well, I have to do this. What they don't necessarily realize or consider is, oh, that really cool video that you think went viral had money behind it. You think this particular occurrence happened and it was organic. That's where I came from inside of music and TV. We created many things to appear like this was just naturally happening when there was a business plan and heavy financing behind it. I find, in what you mentioned earlier, I love it when people hate to sell. They make some of the best engagers, not salespeople, because they don't want to be on script. And then when they find that connection that I find, when even what you're saying there, are they providing solutions? The lead company I'm with, Fish Stewarding Group, our tagline is stewarding strategic solutions. It's not a claim, and we can't do it for everyone. If you don't have the authenticity, the authority, the transparency, and the humility, we can't work with you. Yet we have, and all of us see so many people, I have all the answers for your marketing. I have all the answers for your promotion. I have all the answers for your advertising. But what if somebody coming to them just sucks? So not telling someone what they need or what they have to have, but potentially pulling together solution theories, solutions, ideas, addressing your needs, not the needs of everyone. We have gone to a place, in my opinion, inside of sales and marketing that is an excess of arrogance. I can guarantee you success. What if I'm doing the most immoral, awful, terrible thing? We can step back, and I've asked many clients from the smallest mom and pop to larger scales to state, maybe consider putting something on your website for the people you would work with, but also those that you wouldn't. Showcase the story and the authenticity that's you. And like what you just shared about, hey, a particular story might fit here. It could layer back if you feel like you don't have enough stories. Maybe it's a reference to a movie. Maybe it's something funny over here. Maybe it's a joke about pancakes. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be that next step of, I'm a bestseller. I won this award that I actually signed up for and paid to win. All these things we try to present an excess of hype. And I believe people are hungry for that authentic story that's true.
Yeah, I think I saw that you say we need to get away from the yell, tell, and sell. I love that.
I feel that this idea that if we pause before we put something up, if we pause in that moment when somebody's talking, if we consider for a moment, maybe this person, maybe they need us more than they realize, but they can't necessarily afford it. And we invite them with information and a seed in the moment, then when they can, they'll come back. It's okay to steward. Many people, the content that's on their website, the content that's on their social media is 90% sell. I try to, on my website and my podcast, on my social media sites, I try to steward ideas and concepts that may be useful, whether I ever talk to you or not. And I believe that becomes not only gifting and good from the heart and full of integrity, but it also becomes incredibly inviting to someone saying, wow, all I got was sale, 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 sale. I got 6 pretty cool tips here I could apply. I might look over here. I mean, I would ask that of anyone in your audience of saying, somewhere in the middle of the week inside of what you're putting out, what can you put out to just purely gift with nothing in return? And that may be not only just good for you as a person, but it might be great for your sales and marketing.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I think that is. And on the opposite side of that, I had a situation recently where I attended a virtual conference. I saw, it was interesting. It was on sales, as a matter of fact, primarily. And there were a number of people there, presenters, that I didn't know who they were, but I looked at it LinkedIn and I said, okay, I'll follow them sign up on LinkedIn with them. Well, within a week, I'm getting spam email like you won't believe. I mean, it's one after another. It was so much, in fact, that I'm thinking, years ago when we did, it wasn't that many years ago, when we did live conferences and actually went to these big conferences with thousands of other people, there were conference management companies that did in their, signups for their people to attend say, okay, do you give permission for the vendors who pay for all this to contact you by email? I mean, some of them would do that. So if you said yes, you're on the email list, and you're on the email list. But anyone with any common sense, if you're the vendor and you're going to email this list, the first time you email them, you're going to say to them, you better say to them, by the way, you're getting this email from me because you signed up for this conference and you asked to be put on the list, and I'm sending it to you. And I hope you find this of some value. And if you don't, please say bye and we'll go our separate ways. But these people, actually, I'm just like scratching my heads. I mean, I thought, did I sign up? Did I give away something here when I signed up for this virtual conference to say, no, I don't think so. There was nothing there. And because not a one of them sent that message that said, by the way, you're getting this, they just blasted me with spam. And, and the sad part was I looked at some of it and it was actually some good information, but it could have been handled so much better if they would have had the integrity to ask.
And I think that's part of where the message comes. It's that element of realizing in the experience that you just had or some time back, many of these leadership, sales, marketing, whatever type of guru, whatever type of product, they tend to oftentimes put these emails out as if they're the only one. Yeah. Part of messaging strategy and brand messaging strategy is the consideration of the just oversaturation of, okay, maybe 2,000 people have already sent this exact same thing. How do you differentiate? You just stated the great number one differentiator that I mentioned. I'm right there on board with you. Completely resonate with that. I'm sending you this because of this. Here's why I did it. I ask people, I state, you can take 2 seconds to find out where somebody's from. You got somebody in their Twitter feed has a Red Sox thing in it, and you're a Yankees fan going, I am reaching out. However, I'm blue and true a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
Anytime when somebody takes a second to be authentically engaging with me, I will always respond. When I am spammed, I'm told what I need. I'm told what I should have. I'm told where I'm failing. Mm-hmm. That goes to spam. That goes to unfollow. That goes to block. I don't care, to me personally, I don't care how good your product is. Right now, we're in a time of communication and authenticity. And if that's the mode and method you're choosing with your products, it's not something I want to subscribe to, recommend, or use myself.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was going to say, I haven't even looked at my LinkedIn today, but I just popped it up here just because I wanted to see, their first message, someone that I've never heard says, they want to show me how to have my customers spend 75% less time and effort on doing real estate. I have nothing to do with real estate. There's nothing, my clients have nothing to do with real estate. So, it's so off target. And it's like, if you wanted to just look at my actual profile, you would know, what it is I do. So I have no idea why you get those kinds of messages in marketing. It gives sales and marketing a bad name.
It does. Yeah. And it can be good to be, and at the same time, we don't need to be connected with all of them. I see people that have 500 followers on Twitter that have much better engagement and much better online reputation than the people that have 50,000.
Yeah.
I think that it's not important because I unfollow at first. And if it starts turning annoying, I block. And I mean, like you mentioned the real estate thing. My larger company is involved in a massive real estate project in Africa. And this woman reached out and said, I can do all this stuff. Here's the stuff that you don't know. Here's what I do. Here's how I do it. Had she come to me with humility, with asking what I needed, with not assuming that, okay, yeah, I'm a brand messaging strategist. I don't know the real estate arm of this, but I work with some guys and girls that really do. And had she come and said, are you involved in anything like this? Do you need any help in these areas? I could have introduced her to a multi-million-dollar element and people that she might have connected with through this project.
Yeah.
But in her arrogance and lack and toxicity, I can't do that. And it's not trying to be mean and it's not trying to be arrogant, but even as someone in this, yes, I believe everyone needs to look at their brand messaging. They have to strategically do it, in my belief. Some people don't. There was a woman this morning that emailed me, I've done this, and this. I'm like, okay, well, aren't you supposed to sell me? You've made the decisions on what you're doing. I wish you nothing but the best. It's not a direction I would take. I would run through some of the stuff I've shared, but I wish you nothing but the best. Yeah. And I think some of that becomes a refresher to people, and it differentiates it. We don't need to 10x our clients, like Grant Cardone says, because would a client really want to feel 10x that, okay, I'm one of this many? Would that person go, I want to help 50,000 entrepreneurs? Mm-hmm. One, absolutely impossible. Objectively, absolutely impossible. Number two, so I'm just someone that you're sliding a minute into so you can have a number goal for me. Coming back to what you said, the authenticity, the humility, and the integrity. It's what's for dinner. Let's eat
it. Yeah. We were talking the other day, some people, and they were talking about getting started in a new online type of business. And they said, well, I don't really have a very big list of people, that I have that have signed up for anything of mine. And they're kind of going on and on about that. And finally, someone jumped in and said, let's start with one, start with one person that wants to hear your message and give them something, help them, find out how you can provide value to them. We talked about webinars are still a great thing, as a matter of fact, to help people, because you can put out value and information for free. And people say, maybe that one or two people out of the few that attend say, I believe this person, I trust him, and I want to know more. And that's how you start the process. You don't start the process by yelling and telling and selling. I mean, you don't start screaming at them, and you don't try entering the sales process, the funnel, as you might call it, at some point way down in that funnel. I'm not a big fan of funnels, by the way, but that's just it's a term that's been around. So it's sort of like people. It's good to have a visual reference of some sort. I was looking at some of your podcast, and you do have a podcast. I love the name of it. It's Wait, What? Really? Okay. But you have to say that in a certain way, though. There's
yeah.
I actually turned it on to listen to it a few times after I listened to some of the episodes, because I just wanted to hear the opening theme song again. You have a great sense of humor.
When I was starting the podcast, it was an idea to help some podcasters with some of their brand messaging. And audio was starting to pick up. The numbers on podcasts were going up. And I thought, okay, I'll just pop this thing up. I'll layer it the way that I would advise clients if they were looking at, podcasting as part of their messaging. It took off in a way that I hadn't expected. A couple episodes in, coming from music, and the issue, a lot of people do not correctly license their music. So right. That's where I commissioned the fully licensed theme song by the group RKVC, and use that song even as an early episode of explaining, here's your licensing rights. Here's something that you can do. Here's how you can receive royalties down the line. And the front theme is RKVC. The back theme is a guy named Doug Hinrichs. And that's set up correctly. It's compliant. And because of that compliance, Wait What Really Okay, I believe currently is distributed on 275 channels. And in the optimization of the podcast itself, we average between about 75,000 to 200,000 listens after a few weeks of each episode coming out. But more so, it's that each episode is optimized for Google, for overseas, so that these titles, these phrases, all of that stuff, it's not just episode 305. Mm-hmm. And that's been a greater benefit than anything else. Because, and again, the fade outs are my thing. You want to know more about me, LorenWeisman.com. I leave it very simple. I don't put a sell. I try to gift the information and I leave it alone. And I mean, I've even spoken at some of the podcast conventions, and it's amazing how they're like, make sure to get this sell in here. Do this. You need to monetize your podcast. Yeah. Well, if you're really small and your focus is on monetization, you're going to just be another monetization podcast with a whole bunch of guests, and people are going to get annoyed with you.
Yeah, for the people that don't know what we're talking about or what I'm talking about with the theme song, you have to listen to it. So we'll put the link in the show notes here, but let's just say it's a fully licensed theme song, right? One of the podcasts, you had something, I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting that you said this, but I get it. You said that it had to do with shop local shaming and small business messaging missteps. Why don't you tell us about that? What you meant when you said stop local shaming, shop local shaming. Yeah. I normally just do a one run, put it right up, but I had the exact same problem as I was announcing the episode. I was like, shop, stop, local. Wait a minute, one more time. Set up a tongue twister. Yeah. My view, and again, I'm really subjective with what I believe, and I want more people to be the same way. My view is that when people are just out there saying, you should shop local, you need to shop local. And then how can you go to Walmart to buy these toys for your kid when you could come to this little spot downtown? I find that dishonorable, unethical, and flat out rude. In the time of COVID, in the time of people losing jobs, yes, I understand you're a small business. But if your entire marketing program is using guilt, sarcasm, and negativity, I want nothing to do with your store or your products. Now, on the counter of that, and what I talked about in the episode, let's say you have a little shop and you do children's toys. Oh, this Walmart thing is just crap, and everyone does. Okay, great. Now you've abused someone, and maybe someone has one of those items from their childhood and you've turned them off. To state, if you buy one of ours, we have a little doctor's office in the back so we can mend up a teddy bear. We can do this. When we find different ways to honor the audience that's being obliterated and attacked, then it becomes something a little bit more inviting. I don't want to walk down the local area and see every support local businesses. I understand what you're going for, but tell me why I should support your business. Right. That to me is so much more worth its weight in gold than what could be perceived pessimism, sarcasm, or toxicity. I'm crazy enough to work once in a while with small retail businesses, although I've taken an oath more than once saying I'll never do it again. But and if you've been in my line of work, maybe people understand. But let's just say you have a small local business in retail. It's a family-owned business. They're difficult. It's a tough business. Retail is a tough business. But I've had people say to me, I want to do, a shop local campaign. And, I'm tired of these big box stores putting me out of business. They undercut, they do this, and you hear all the negative of why they're just being beat up. And my message has always been, well, let's differentiate you from them. Tell me what it is that's different about you. Why should I come to you instead of going, down the street a mile and save 30%? Because you admit your prices are higher. What am I getting from you? What do you provide? What service do you have? Tell me why I should do this. That's tough for a lot of them to do. Of course, that's why they call me, but it's difficult for them to actually come up with what differentiates them or to add value. And for a lot of these people, we would do things like, let's add some classes. Let's teach people some things. Let's give them away. Whatever product you might have, if you're a fishing store, give fishing seminars. If you, whatever it might be. If you're a jewelry store or I tell you what, there's an Italian deli I did stuff with that. We started doing cooking classes free. I mean, it was free classes. Once a month you come in and we'll bring a chef in and teach you how to cook. Restaurant, how do you differentiate your restaurant? Just you could do something in their homes, in COVID. There's all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it is work, but you just don't follow the masses. Don't try to be Walmart because you will lose. You will lose every time if you try to be them. There's just them. Anyway.
I love that about that. And after going to your website, you're in brand messaging in a way as well, because what you say is the exact same thing that I share, where it isn't a shop local campaign. It is that fishing thing. It's that, is there some kind of thing that you can share? The small local restaurants, there's so much to do. There are 9 other Mexican restaurants in the Orlando area. I just helped a friend out And we did a post about the history of guacamole.
Nice.
We do with these elements of just fun things to do. I got a guy that's got a salsa company. We're going to set up a salsa national championship chip bracket. Mm-hmm. And it's going to all come down to the final 4 chips, and all of them are going to be tested on this particular guy's salsa. And on the weekends, he's got it out at a farmer's market. All the little nuanced things that then regurgitate. It's not just shop local. Did you notice that we have this thing? Is there an Easter egg you can see in the store? It's not saying, don't go to Walmart or Target and come here, but more of, what was that shop before it was you? Do you have any of these old things? Do you want to share something? Okay, so maybe you've got a local tool shop. Like you said, what can you give? And even if they're going to Walmart, as opposed to shaming them, what could you teach them about the product that they learn from you, that slowly they begin to see you with real authority, not anger, and they feel that sense of, I'm ready to go there. I'm ready to commit to that. I'll give you a great example. There was a guy last night, and I'm in the Winter Garden area of Florida. Mm-hmm. Some of the worst marketers, in my opinion, around here. This one guy put out this thing, and I kept it, and I was thinking about it for our talk this morning. And he said, I've never been to a barber like this, wanted to share with the other guys. So it's 4 pictures of this guy after a haircut.
Okay.
You didn't show me before. Yeah. You didn't show, the after, you look like you've always looked every time I see you. I don't know anything about the attention to detail, how long they took. I have nothing that with the barber that I love, that you've invited me to give it a chance or share it with someone else. That's coming back to where the messaging strategy is off for many. We have this sense that I'm going to put this out and assume that all the masses will understand exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, so part of the issue is you have younger generations whose span of attention is that of a gnat. And that's part of the problem, is that they don't have that span of attention. They want everything in burst of information. And so you have marketers who are trying to deliver it that way. And they think, well, the only way I can deliver it that way is I've got to scream and yell and tell, because that's what will get their attention. Whereas actually, I find that millennials will, if we're talking about that generation, they'll respond to the kind of marketing we're talking about. They're all about authenticity and doing the right thing. It is a big part of their lives. They're willing to spend more money to do that. So let's talk just briefly. I wanted to ask you, just for our audience here, because you were a drummer for some pretty significant rock groups. A session drummer, is that what you call it?
I was a session and ghost drummer. Yeah. I was the guy that would get called in when the drummer was too drunk, on drugs, couldn't play the part, certain situations, having a bad breakup. I came in the middle of the night and would sign a non-disclosure, and I would get paid a little bit extra to not have my name on the record. And for me, and it was a friend of mine in New York that said, he goes, dude, you're tall, hairy, and scary. You're never going to be a rock star, but I'll get you to play with most of them. And so this behind the scenes thing, and it brought it. I got to watch messaging. I got to watch the bands that were coming up, the boy bands, the country. And it was early education about not just, okay, we're going to put this song out, but how we're going to make this successful, how we're going to stay in the red with this project. But it was, being behind the scenes was so much fun. And even my friends that are more well-known right now, I'd take my career over theirs any day, because I can walk down the street.
Yeah.
And the stories, and even the messaging in music and television, this happened. I was there. That didn't happen. That cognitive dissonance where they continue to fight. No, I read in this book and saw in this interview. Read a book from a guy that wasn't there, saw in an interview 2 people that talk about that weren't there. I'm telling you firsthand, I was there and sober and remember it. And in that objective proof, you still don't believe me.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting career, I'm sure. So now, how do people get hold of you if they are looking for help with their brand messaging?
Well, they can visit the website. It's lorenweisman.com, or pretty much on social media anywhere, the @, LORENWEISMAN. I leave a lot of free information out there, from videos to photos to just thoughts to consider inside of yours. I don't want you to fire your marketer. I don't want you to fire your sales guy. I don't want you to fire, your business developer. Mm-hmm. But in certain cases, if stuff just doesn't feel right and it's not resonating, consider bringing some of these pieces and these tools to the table. You might not even need to reach out to me. If it's something that engages you and you want to, I'm always open to connecting.
So you're kind of like a coach in many ways.
with all the derogatory terms of coaching, I try to keep it at strategist, but yeah, kind of a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. It's funny because you think about it, and I read this recently too. Someone, I want to say, I forget, I think Mark Schaefer may have said it there, someone. And they were talking about coaching. What is the problem with coaching? You know what it wasn't? It was Seth Godin, as a matter of fact, in one of his blogs. Because coaching does have that derogatory sort of feel to it. It's sort of like salesperson in a way anymore. And yet, the best athletes, the best performers, you name the best of the best drummers like you, everyone has teachers. They have coaches. You don't stop learning. If you want to be the best at anything, you continue to learn. You continue to hire coaches. The top athletes or the world or whoever, it doesn't have to be an athlete, but let's say the top athletes all have their own coaches. That's not unusual, except in business.
Well, it's interesting because in the time when I came up, I studied under a guy named Gary Chafee, a very well-known drum teacher. And he taught Vinnie Colaiuta from Sting and Joni Mitchell. He taught Steve Smith from Journey. This guy created 7 amazing books that still to this day are a standard for drummers to learn syncopation, different styles of techniques. When I went on, I also studied with a big band instructor who had hundreds of albums under his belt. He was a great teacher as well. I studied under a very famous jazz drummer who, again, 30 years of odd experiences, growth, the ability of what he created so he could do that. In my experience, what I did inside of music, what I did inside of TV, where I did this, as I come to someone, here's where I come from. The problem I have with coaches today is that some people are getting right out of college and calling themselves a coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I do coaching and I do strategy, but I'm going to pick on him. I'm going to name him. I disagree with John Maxwell. I've seen his programs and I've ended up coaching the quote unquote John Maxwell business coaches. And I've looked at the programs where it's a small amount of time of use this template and then they spend 80% from what I read of the documentation, so I don't get myself in trouble here, marketing it. Many of these coaches should not be coaching, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think that for the people that are looking for that coach, vet them. Are they practicing what they preach? Are they only selling? Are they bringing something? Because coach has turned into a dirty word, but we're also just as responsible for our business. If we hire someone off the fly, off of hype, off of false reviews, purchased accolades, fake numbers, then it's just as much our fault for buying into the BS.
And we're right back to authenticity, huh? Yep. Yeah, no, you're right. And it's just, I do get amazed at the number of people who, one, just refuse to even think about hiring coaches or hiring help. Consultant's a bad word too. My company is a consulting company, been that way for 40 some years, so, but that's how it is. A lot of jokes about consultants, but it's funny how business people will hesitate to do that. Yet on the other hand, you're right. The same business people will buy into the hype sometimes. It's sort of like the rah, but we're emotional creatures. We don't make decisions for rational reasons a lot of times. It's really the messaging. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to add authenticity and humility and transparency into messaging. And it's good having you here today.
It's great being with you, Bob. I mean, again, I really resonate off of your authenticity and your experience. And like you said, you've got a consulting company, by all means, is a positive, moral, authority-based consulting group. It just, as the challenge that it is for you, as I'm sure as it is for me, where someone else has the consulting, coaching, or strategist, and they sit there and fluff with the promises. And one of the things that I've come to, and I don't know, maybe you've come to it long before I did, I've learned to be calmer and washing my hands of it, of just being able to say, I'm here to help. I show you how I may be able to help. Here's the information. I'm not going to go rah-rah-ree. I'm not going to blow your mind. I'm not going to claim things that I can't claim. I'm going to stand in the subjective. If that doesn't attract you, I will never change my message because I'm not the person you're going to want to work with.
Yeah, I've used that same message. To put it another way, I can remember telling a couple people, that were kind of headstrong, and they said, well, I'm going to do this anyway. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. My job, as I see it, is I want to point out to you where the potholes are, where the traps are. And if you choose to walk into them anyways, that's okay. That's your choice. And I'll be here if you need help getting back out, So So it's been fun. Thanks again for being here. We'll have to catch up again sometime.
Absolutely, Bob. It was my pleasure. I honor and respect the way that you have a voice in this area where so many others go much more the yell, tell, sell. I really have enjoyed our time together, your website, and the way that you perform your message. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Loren. You take care. Thank you for being here with us today at the Water Cooler Hangout. If you'd like to learn more about the things we talked about, you can read the show notes by going to www.bobpoole.com/podcast. That's www.bobpoole.com/podcast with an S. Take care, and don't forget, listen first and sell later.